It was a Tuesday morning in Tucson, the kind of morning where the Arizona sun feels like it's trying to burn through your soul before you've even had your coffee. I was sitting in my tiny apartment, a shoebox of a place that smelled faintly of mildew and regret. The ceiling fan creaked above me, stirring the hot air but doing nothing to cool it. I'd been here for 2 years, ever since James died. 2 years since the heart attack that took him, my job at the high school, and every shred of stability I'd known. I was 58, and my world had crumbled like a sandcastle in a storm. I stared at the last of my savings on the kitchen counter. Bank statement showing $412. That was it. That was all that stood between me, Eleanor Hayes, and the street. I used to be an art teacher, you know. Spent 30 years showing kids how to find beauty in a blank canvas. But budget cuts don't care about your passion, and neither does a school board looking to save a buck. So here I was, jobless, widowed, and drowning in a kind of darkness I didn't have a name for. Not sadness, not quite. It was heavier, like a weight that pressed out your appetite, your sleep, your hope. The phone rang, shattering the silence. "Mom?" Sophia's voice came through, bright and sharp, like glass catching the light. My daughter, 36, always sounded like she was selling something when she called. "Hey, sweetheart," I said, keeping my tone even, though my heart was already bracing itself. Sophia only called when she wanted something, and that brightness in her voice. It was the kind she used when she knew I wouldn't like what came next. "So I have news," she chirped. I could hear her smile, wide and practiced. "Daniel and I bought a place in Oro Valley. It's gorgeous, Mom. 4 bedrooms, a pool, this insane view of the mountains. You should see the kitchen, marble everything, and a wine fridge." She went on, painting a picture of a life I'd never touch, her words like little needles pricking at my skin. I sat there, clutching my chipped coffee mug, while she described a world of luxury I couldn't even dream of anymore. "That sounds wonderful, honey," I managed, my voice tight. "I'm happy for you." "Well, that's why I'm calling," she said. And there it was, the shift. That careful, calculated tone she used when she was about to drop a bomb. "You know Maggie, Daniel's mom. She's been struggling since his dad passed. That big house of hers is just too much for her alone. So we're moving her into the Guesthouse. It's perfect for her, Mom. It's got its own kitchen, a little garden, even a patio for her morning coffee. She's thrilled." My chest tightened. I could see Maggie's face in my mind, soft, polished, always smiling like she was posing for a magazine. "That sounds lovely for her," I said, my words careful, like stepping around broken glass. "And, there's something else," Sophia continued, her voice dipping just enough to make my stomach clench. "There's this shed behind the house. It's small, just a concrete thing, really, but it's got electricity, a sink. We thought, well, maybe you could move in there. Just for a bit, you know, while you get back on your feet." The words hit me like a slap. A shed. My daughter was offering me a shed while giving her mother-in-law a guest house with a garden. "A shed?" I repeated, my voice smaller than I meant it to be. "Oh, Mom, don't be dramatic," Sophia said, laughing lightly like I was a child throwing a tantrum. "It's better than that awful apartment you're in, isn't it? You're behind on rent, I know you are. This way you'd have a roof over your head, and you'd be close to Lily and Ethan. They miss you, you know. They don't, I thought, but didn't say. Lily was 10, Ethan 7, and I hadn't seen them in months, despite living just an hour away. Sophia had made sure of that, with her busy life and her subtle ways of keeping me at arm's length. "Sophia, I need to think about this," I said, my throat tight. "What's to think about?" Her voice hardened, just a touch. "You're about to lose that apartment. You've always been good at making do, Mom. You're used to, well, less. You should be grateful you're not out on the street." There it was. The knife. slipped so smoothly between my ribs I almost didn't feel it at first. Grateful. For a shed. For scraps. I closed my eyes, and for a moment I saw James, his kind eyes, the way he'd hold my hand and tell me my sketches were beautiful, that one day I'd have my own gallery. "We'll turn the spare room into your studio," he'd say, back when Sophia was little, back when we had dreams. But James was gone, and those dreams were buried with him. "I have to go," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "Mom, wait." "We're having a family dinner Sunday to celebrate Daniel's new project. You could move in then, settle into your new place." "Your new place. A shed." "I'll call you back," I said, and hung up. I sat there, staring at the phone, feeling something cold and hard settle in my chest. It wasn't just grief. It wasn't even anger. It was something sharper, like the first crack in a dam about to break. I'd given Sophia everything, my savings for her college, my time when she and Daniel were starting out, my heart when I watched her kids so she could build her career. And now, when I was the one drowning, she was offering me a moldy shed and calling it kindness. I hung up the phone and sat there, staring at the cracked linoleum floor of my apartment. Sophia's words echoed in my head. "You're used to less. You should be grateful, grateful, for a shed." I closed my eyes and the memories came rushing back, uninvited, like ghosts slipping through the cracks of my heart. I saw Sophia as a little girl, her tiny hands smudged with paint, laughing as we sketched together on the porch. I saw James, his calloused fingers brushing mine, promising we'd build a life full of color and possibility. And I saw myself, giving it all away. For Sophia, always for Sophia. When she was 18, I emptied my savings, $20,000, to cover her college tuition so she wouldn't start life in debt. When she and Daniel were newlyweds, struggling to keep up with rent, I took out a loan to help them buy their first condo. I made payments when they couldn't. And when Lily was born, then Ethan, I put my art on hold to babysit for months, unpaid, so Sophia could chase her startup dreams. I was there, always there, until I wasn't needed anymore. When James got sick, everything changed. The hospital bills piled up like a cruel joke, draining what little we had left. Sophia was too busy to visit, too busy to call, too busy to come to the funeral. I stood alone at James's grave, clutching a sketchbook he'd given me years ago, its pages still blank. I drowned in those medical bills, in grief, in the silence of a daughter who didn't seem to care. And now, this, a shed, my reward for 36 years of motherhood. The phone rang again. It was my landlord, Mr. Garcia, his voice clipped and tired. "Eleanor, I'm sorry, but I need to know about next month's rent. You're already a month behind." I swallowed hard. "I understand, Mr. Garcia. I'll be out by the end of the week." I hung up before he could respond, my hands shaking. I wasn't just losing my apartment. I was losing Eleanor Hayes, the woman who used to believe in beauty, in art, in family. But maybe that was exactly what I needed to lose. 3 days later, I stood in the driveway of Sophia's new mansion in Oro Valley, my life packed into a borrowed SUV from my neighbor Ruth. The house was a vision of excess, white stucco walls, a tiled roof that gleamed under the desert sun, a lawn so green it looked painted. It screamed money, the kind of money I'd never touched in my life. Sophia stepped out the front door, her linen dress pristine, her dark hair pulled into a perfect bun. Behind her trailed Daniel, lanky and awkward, holding a smoothie like it was a prop in their perfect life. "Mom, you made it." Sophia's voice was bright, but it felt like a performance. "Come on, let me show you your space." Your space. Not your home, not your room, your space. like I was a piece of furniture to be stored away. We walked past the guest house, where Maggie would live. Through its wide windows, I saw her arranging a vase of lilies on a polished counter, her silver hair catching the light. She looked up, gave Sophia a warm smile, then glanced at me. Her smile faltered just for a second, like she pitied me. "Maggie's been amazing," Sophia said as we walked, her voice bubbling with admiration. "She's already planning art projects with Lily and teaching Ethan how to make her famous blueberry scones." The words hung in the air, sharp and unspoken. "Unlike you." I said nothing, my shoes crunching on the gravel path. We reached the back of the property, where a squat concrete shed sat against a rusty fence. It looked like an afterthought, a box forgotten in the desert heat. "Here we are," Sophia announced, pushing open the door. The smell hit me first, musty, damp, like wet earth and neglect. The shed was tiny, maybe 8 by 10 feet, with a single grimy window, a flickering bulb overhead, and a rusted sink dripping into a stained basin. The concrete floor was cold, even through my sneakers. "See? It's got everything you need," Sophia said, pointing to a plug-in heater in the corner. "Electricity, water, even climate control." Her enthusiasm was forced, like she was trying to sell me a used car. I stood in the middle of the shed, turning slowly, taking it in. This was where my daughter thought I belonged. This was what my life had come to, a moldy box, while Maggie got a guest house with lilies and sunlight. "What do you think?" Sophia asked, an edge of impatience in her voice. I thought about the guest house, about Maggie's warm smile, about the way Sophia's eyes lit up when she talked about her mother-in-law. I thought about how invisible I'd become. "It's perfect," I said, my voice steady. And in that moment something shifted inside me. Not hope, not yet, but a spark, small and stubborn, like the first stroke of a brush on a blank canvas. I'd been pushed to the edge, but maybe the edge was exactly where I needed to be. I stood in the shed, my new prison, with its damp walls and flickering bulb, and let the reality of it settle into my bones. This was it. Rock bottom, the place where 36 years of being Sophia's mother had led me. I'd unpacked my few belongings, a folding cot from Ruth, a duffel bag of clothes, a chipped teapot James had loved. They looked pitiful in this concrete box, like relics of a life that didn't belong to me anymore. But as the Tucson sun dipped, below the horizon casting long shadows through that grimy window, something strange happened. I didn't feel broken. I felt awake, like I'd been sleepwalking for years and was finally opening my eyes. I started arranging my things, trying to make this place feel less like a tomb. That's when I noticed them. 4 wooden crates tucked in the far corner, half hidden under a tattered tarp. They were coated in dust, the kind that clings like a memory. Daniel had mentioned some junk left by the previous owners, nothing worth keeping. But something about those crates pulled at me, like a whisper I couldn't ignore. I dragged the tarp away, coughing as dust swirled in the air, and pried open the first crate with a screwdriver from my bag. Inside, nestled in foam, were rows of art supplies that made my heart skip. Prismacolor pencils, their colors gleaming like jewels. Tubes of Winsor & Newton oil paints, unopened, their caps still sealed. A stack of Arches watercolor paper, heavy and pristine, the kind I'd only dreamed of using when I was teaching. My hands trembled as I opened the second crate. A small hand-cranked printing press, a professional model worth thousands, its metal glinting under the dim bulb. The third and fourth crates held more treasures. Brushes with sable bristles, jars of ink, and a set of liner-cut tools so fine they felt like they belonged in a museum. I sat back on my heels, surrounded by this unexpected fortune, my breath catching in my throat. Who had left this here? Why? In the last crate, I found a small tin box, rusted at the edges. Inside was a letter, yellowed but carefully folded, and a few faded photographs. The letter was written in a shaky hand, each word deliberate, like it had taken effort to form. To whoever finds this, it began. My name is Clara Townsend. I'm 85, and I'm running out of time. These tools were my dream, a studio for printing art, for turning blank pages into stories. I collected them over decades, planning to open my shop after I retired. But Parkinson's had other plans. My children don't care for art. They'll sell this house, toss these crates. If you're reading this, I hope you're someone who sees what I saw in these tools. Use them, paint your life, create something beautiful. Clara. I read the letter twice, tears stinging my eyes. Clara, a woman I'd never met, had just handed me a lifeline. Her words felt like a hand reaching through time, pulling me up from the dark. But there was more in the tin box, a stack of old letters tied with a ribbon. One caught my eye, addressed to my mother, Sophia's grandmother, in Sophia's teenage handwriting. My hands shook as I opened it, the paper brittle with age. It was dated 20 years ago when Sophia was 16. Dear Grandma, it read. I heard Mom and Dad fighting again last night. Mom wants to go to art school to be a real artist, but Dad says it's a waste, that she has to focus on me and him. I heard her crying after, saying she's giving up her dreams for us. I don't know why, but it makes me so mad. Like it's my fault she's stuck. I don't want to be her excuse. The words blurred as my tears fell. Sophia had carried this resentment all these years, believing I'd blamed her for my unfulfilled dreams. I'd never known, never suspected. All this time, I thought she'd pulled away because I wasn't enough. But it was more than that. She'd been carrying a wound I didn't even see. I sat there, clutching that letter, my heart torn between grief and clarity. Sophia's coldness, her distance, it wasn't just cruelty. It was pain, twisted and buried, festering into something that pushed us apart. But I couldn't fix that now. Not in this shed, not after everything. What I could do was take Clara's gift and make something of it. Something for me. I pulled out my phone and called Ruth, my voice steadier than it had been in months. Eleanor, how's the shed? She asked, her warmth cutting through the static. It's perfect, I said, and for the first time, I meant it. Ruth, I need a favor. Do you still have that guide you used to start your bakery business? She laughed, surprised. Sure, but I never got it off the ground. Why? Because I'm starting something, I said, looking at the crates, at Clara's letter, at the blank canvas of my life. A real business, Clara's canvas, and I need to know how to make it happen. There was a pause, then Ruth's voice softened. Eleanor, what are you up to? I glanced at the shed's damp walls, at the treasures scattered around me. I'm done being invisible, I said. I'm done being grateful for scraps. I'm going to paint my way out of this. Good for you, Ruth said, and I could hear her smile. I'm coming over tomorrow with everything you need. I hung up and stood in the center of the shed, Clara's letter still in my hand. Outside I could hear Sophia's laughter from the main house, Maggie's voice joining in, the kids running through the yard. A perfect family without me. But for the first time in years, that didn't break me. It lit a fire. This shed wasn't my grave. It was my studio, my starting line, and I was ready to run. The next morning, I woke up before dawn, the shed's cold concrete floor seeping through my cot. But for the first time in years, I didn't feel heavy. Clara's crates sat in the corner, glowing faintly in the early light like they were waiting for me. I pulled out a sheet of Arches paper, its texture smooth and heavy under my fingers, and picked up a Prismacolor pencil. The moment it touched the page, sketching the jagged outline of a Tucson saguaro against a fiery sky. I felt something I hadn't in decades. Alive. Like the world was quiet, and all that mattered was the color flowing from my hand. Ruth showed, up that afternoon, her silver hair tied back, a laptop under one arm, and a stack of business guides under the other. "You're serious about this, aren't you?" she said, eyeing the crates with a grin. "Dead serious," I replied, and we got to work. Ruth taught me how to set up an Instagram account and an Etsy shop, her fingers flying over the keyboard, while I fumbled with hashtags and photo filters. It felt like learning a new language at 58, but I was hungry for it. Hungry to be seen. That night I finished my first piece, a watercolor of a desert sunset, all blazing oranges and deep purples, the kind of beauty that makes you ache. I posted it on Instagram with a caption that came straight from my heart. "Every pain can become art. Clara's canvas, handcrafted in Tucson." I held my breath and hit share, half expecting it to vanish into the void. But by morning, I had 100 likes, then 200. A gallery in downtown Tucson messaged, asking if I took custom orders. A woman in San Francisco wanted a similar piece for her office. A local art teacher, someone I'd trained years ago, reposted it, calling me Tucson's hidden treasure. I stared at my phone, hardly believing it. Strangers saw my work. They saw me. When was the last time Sophia had looked at anything I'd done with that kind of care? I threw myself into the work like it was oxygen. I'd wake at 5 before Sophia's family stirred, and paint until the shed's bulb flickered out at midnight. The printing press hummed to life, turning my sketches into limited edition prints that sold faster than I could make them. I bought lamps, a work table, shelves for Clara's supplies. The shed, once a prison, started to feel like a sanctuary. My command center. 4 weeks in, Clara's canvas was a small phenomenon. I had 5,000 followers, orders piling up, and a feature on a local art blog calling me the desert's best-kept secret. The shed was alive with color. Sketches pinned to the walls, paint cans stacked neatly, the press churning out, prints that smelled of fresh ink. I'd forgotten how much I loved this, how the rhythm of a brush or the scrape of a linocut blade could make the world disappear. Sophia's laughter from the main house, Maggie's voice calling the kids, Daniel's car pulling into the driveway, they faded into nothing when I was painting. Sophia noticed, eventually. One evening, she appeared in the shed's doorway, her arms crossed, her perfect bun slightly askew. "Mom, what's all this noise?" she asked, her eyes scanning the chaos of my workspace. Paper, paint, the press, in mid-print. "What are you doing in here?" "Working," I said, not looking up from the canvas I was sketching. "A mesquite tree, its branches twisting like veins. Working on what?" Her voice had an edge, like she was annoyed I hadn't cleared this with her first. I gestured around the shed, at the prints drying on racks, the orders taped to my table. "This, Clara's canvas, my business." Her eyes widened, taking it in for the first time. "Where did you get all this stuff? The paint? That machine?" "It was here," I said simply. "The previous owners left it. Daniel said it was just junk, remember?" "That's impossible," she snapped. "We had this place cleared." "Out." I met her gaze, steady and calm. "Guess they missed something important." Sophia's face flickered. Confusion, maybe a hint of panic. "Mom, you can't run a business out of here. This is a residential property. There are rules, zoning laws." "I checked," I interrupted, pulling out the business license Ruth had helped me file. "It's zoned for mixed use. I've got the permits. Everything's legal." She stared at me, her mouth opening and closing like she was searching for a comeback. "How long have you been doing this?" 4 weeks. I turned back to my sketch, my pencil moving in sure, deliberate strokes. And you've got customers? The word came out like it tasted sour. All these people buying your drawings. Prints, I corrected, still not looking up. And yes, turns out people value quality. Funny how that works. She shifted, her heels clicking on the concrete. This is kind of impressive, Mom. From her, it sounded like she was admitting I wasn't completely useless, and even that seemed to pain her. But you can't keep working in this shed. It's a mess. We could help you find a real studio somewhere appropriate. Daniel knows people in real estate. I could talk to... No, the word came out sharper than I meant, but I didn't take it back. I set down my pencil and faced her. I'm fine here, Sophia. I like the quiet. I like the privacy. I don't need your help. Her face flushed like I'd slapped her. Mom, I'm just trying to what? I stepped closer, my voice low but firm. 4 weeks ago, you told me I was used to less. You told me to be grateful for this shed. What's changed? Why do you suddenly care where I work? I didn't mean it like that, she stammered. I want better for you. Do you? I asked, and the question hung between us like a blade. Or do you want to control this? To make it yours like you've done with everything else I've ever given you? She opened her mouth, then closed it, her eyes darting away. For a moment I thought about the letter I'd found, the one she'd written at 16. But I didn't say anything, not yet. That was mine to hold, not hers. I have work to do, I said, turning back to my canvas. Real work. She stood there a moment longer, then left without another word. I heard her footsteps fade, and for the first time, I felt something new. Not just freedom, but power. The kind that comes from building something no one can take away. 2 months later, everything exploded. I was working on a print, a saguaro under a starry sky, when my phone buzzed with a notification that stopped my heart. Ava Martinez tagged you in a post. Ava Martinez, the Hollywood actress, 32, with 10 million followers. I clicked, my hands shaking, and there she was, standing at a red carpet premiere, holding one of my prints framed in gold. Her caption, read, obsessed with this piece from Clara's canvas. Tucson's own Eleanor Hayes is a genius. Support small artists. Within hours, my follower count jumped from 8,000 to 80,000. Orders flooded my Etsy shop, 300 a day. A Tucson art magazine requested an interview. A printing company offered a collaboration to mass-produce my designs. I sat in my shed, surrounded by Clara's tools, and laughed. Really laughed for the first time in years. Sophia thought she'd buried me here. But this moldy shed? It was my launch pad, and I was soaring. The shed had become my world, no longer a damp, moldy box. It was a humming studio, alive with color and purpose. Shelves lined the walls, stacked with paints and prints. The printing press whirred steadily, turning my sketches into art that people, strangers, galleries, even a Hollywood star, wanted to own. Clara's canvas wasn't just a business anymore. It was my rebellion, my proof that I was more than the invisible mother Sophia had discarded. But rebellion, I learned, has a way of drawing attention. One evening, as I was packing a print for a client in Chicago, Sophia appeared in the doorway. Her face was different this time, not the dismissive smirk from weeks ago, or the grudging surprise when she saw my work. This was something new, desperation. "Mom," she said, her voice small, almost trembling. "Can we talk?" I set down my packing tape, my hands steady despite the sudden thud in my chest. "I'm busy," I said, gesturing to the orders stacked on my table. "But I'm listening." She stepped inside, uninvited, her eyes darting around the shed. It barely resembled the concrete cells she'd given me. Professional lighting cast a warm glow over my work table. Bolts of printing paper were organized by weight and texture. A laptop, Ruth's old one, displayed my Etsy dashboard, orders pouring in faster than I could keep up. "This is incredible," Sophia said, her voice catching. "I had no idea, Mom. This whole thing, it's huge." "I'm aware," I said, my tone flat, turning back to my packing. She took a breath, like she was steeling herself. "Mom, I owe you an apology." I froze, my fingers pausing on the tape. "For what?" I asked, still not looking at her. For how I treated you." Her words came out in a rush, like she'd rehearsed them. "For putting you in here, for saying those things, that you were used to less, that you should be grateful. I was wrong. I was awful. I'm so sorry." I turned to face her, studying her expression. There were tears in her eyes, real ones glinting under the shed's lights. But beneath them, I saw something else. Calculation, a flicker of need. I'd seen that look before, when she needed money for college, for her wedding, for her life. "Apology noted," I said, my voice cold. "That's it?" she asked, her tears spilling over. "Mom, I'm trying to fix this, to be close again." "I'm proud of you. Don't you see that? This business, Ava Martinez, all of it, and it's amazing." I set down the print and crossed my arms. "Proud of me now, are you? Funny how that works. You didn't care about being close when I was drowning, Sophia. When Dad died, when I lost my job, when I was one step from the street. You gave me this shed and called it kindness. So tell me, what's changed?" Her face crumpled, but she pressed on. "I know I messed up. I was caught up in my life, the kids, Daniel's career. But we're family, Mom. I want us to be okay again." I stepped closer, my voice low. "Are you sorry because you hurt me, or because you want something from me?" She flinched, and I knew I'd hit the mark. "Let me guess. You want to help manage this, don't you? Turn Clara's canvas into your project? You and Daniel, with your connections, your ideas, your MBA. That's not—" she started, but I held up a hand. "Don't. I found something else in this shed, Sophia. Not just Clara's tools. A letter, yours, written when you were 16 to Grandma." Her eyes widened, her breath catching. "You wrote about hearing me fight with Dad. About how I gave up art school for you, for him. You said it made you angry, like you were my excuse for being stuck. All these years, you've been carrying that, haven't you? Punishing me for a choice I made, a choice I never blamed you for." She covered her mouth, tears streaming now. I didn't know you'd find that." "I didn't know either," I said, my voice softer but no less firm. "I didn't know you felt that way. But it doesn't change what you did. You pushed me away, Sophia. You made me invisible. And now, when I've built something without you want back in." "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I was wrong. Please, Mom." I shook my head. "I don't need your sorry. I don't need your pride. I built this without you, and I'll keep building it without you." 6 months later, I stood in the heart of Tucson, signing a lease for a gallery on Congress Street. A sleek, sunlit space with white walls and views of the Catalinas. Clara's canvas was now a name people knew, a brand worth $10 million, with orders from Paris to New York. I'd hired 6 artists, all women over 50, each told they were too old for this world. Together, we were proving them wrong. That morning, my phone buzzed with a call from a lawyer. "Miss Hayes, I represent your daughter Sophia and her husband Daniel. They're facing financial difficulties, a defaulted mortgage, maxed out credit cards, a bad investment Maggie pushed them into. They're losing the house. Sophia asked me to reach out, hoping you'd consider a loan given your success." I hung up without a word. Hours later, Sophia appeared in the gallery's lobby, her hair unwashed, Her eyes ringed with exhaustion. "Mom, please," she said, rushing toward me. "We're losing everything. The house, our savings. Maggie's crypto scheme wiped us out. The kids? Lily asked if we'll be homeless. I know I have no right, but you're the only one who can help. 200,000 just to catch up." I looked at her, this woman who'd once been my world, and felt nothing but a cold, clear calm. "And what do I get in return?" I asked. "We'll pay you back," she stammered. "With interest when Daniel gets a new job." I laughed, sharp and low. "So never. Tell me, Sophia, where was family when I needed you? When I was grieving Dad, drowning in bills, begging for a scrap of your time? You gave me a shed and told me to be grateful. Now you want my money because I'm worth something?" She fell to her knees, sobbing. "Please, Mom, for Lily and Ethan." I walked to the window, staring at the Tucson skyline. "You made sure." I barely knew them. "They call Maggie Grandma, not me." I turned back, my voice steady. "You'll lose the house. You'll face the consequences of every choice you made. And I'll watch, just like you watched me fall apart," she begged, but I was done. I handed her a small package, a set of pencils and paper for Lily and Ethan, with a note, "Draw your own path." "For the kids," I said, "but not for you." She left, sobbing. I felt no satisfaction, no regret, just freedom. The kind that comes when you stop chasing love that was never yours. That evening, I sat in my new gallery on Congress Street, the Tucson skyline, sparkling beyond the floor to ceiling. Windows. The space was quiet, save for the soft hum of the air conditioning, a far cry from the moldy shed where it all began. My prints lined the walls, saguaros, starry deserts, mesquite trees, each one a piece of me, painted from pain into beauty. Clara's canvas was no longer just a dream. It was my empire, built on my terms, answerable to no one. I pulled Clara Townsend's letter from my desk, its edges worn from countless readings. "Paint your life," she'd written. I had. I'd taken her tools, her hope, and turned a concrete tomb into a canvas for my rebirth. I thought of Sophia, her tear-streaked face as she left the gallery, and felt no anger, no sadness, just peace. The woman who'd begged for her love was gone, buried in that shed with the scraps I'd once been grateful for. I wrapped a small print, a desert flower blooming against all odds, and sent it to a local art charity, with a note, "For Clara, who gave me light." Outside, Tucson glowed like a constellation, and I was its brightest star. Alone, yes, but free. Unbreakable. Exactly as I'd chosen to be. And here's what I learned, what I hope you'll carry with you. Sometimes the darkest places, the sheds, the losses, the betrayals, are where you find your truest self. Don't wait for someone to save you. Pick up the brush, paint your own path. Because the life you create, the one you fight for, is the one that will never fade.